Another week, boys, and another twab. This week at Bungie, we seem to have written a short novel about the upcoming weapon sandbox changes. Hello, dear reader. I'd like to kick this twab off with a quick word of advice. Never end your drafting phase with your introduction. I've been kicking this thing around for about 15 minutes now, trying to figure out the best way to launch you into yet another mega twab worth of sandbox information. We've got quite a few changes planned for next season, and we're excited to start spreading the word. Let's keep our conversation about the live game short and sweet, shall we? It's an interesting week, to say the least. Master difficulty for Valve the Disciple has kicked off, with just a few short weeks left before Guardians begin to claim the raid titles. Grandmasters continue to push the limits of player skills, build crafting, and general gameplay strategy. Iron Banner has come and gone, but Trials of Osiris returns this Friday with some light changes to post-flawless experience. There's still quite a bit to do, especially if you're trying to finish off each fresh triumph released with the Witch Queen and Season of the Risen. All said, we're having a good time, and we hope you are too. Even with a solid launch in our sales, the winds of change will always catch up to Destiny. As mentioned, we'll be talking about how these winds are shifting the sands of our weapon sandbox. Some of you know the Destiny sandbox like the back of your hands. In some cases, well enough to release a 45-minute about the intricacies of shotguns. Well, do we have some changes ready for you? I've been known to recommend grabbing a drink of water and a snack for larger twabs, and this is no different. Take this at your own pace, have a good time, and ask questions once you're through. Our community and sandbox teams will be at the ready to issue clarifications as we can, and we'll follow up in future posts, twabs, or other means of communication if necessary. That's right, guys. Grab a drink. Tell your old lady you're gonna be out for a few more hours, because this is a meaty twab. I'm talking 9,000 words. So let's start with that's a big sandbox. In a few short sentences, we'll be passing the mic over to staff designer Chris Proctor. Chris joins us today as a representative of the team, speaking to a few hundred bullets of sandbox patch notes that were developed by a group of ragtag guardians here at the studio. Each of them contributed many hours of their time to get these changes prepped and ready for Season 17, which is beginning May the 24th. And we're expecting Crucible strategies to shift a bit in just a few short weeks. For those that aren't in tune with the intricacies of the Destiny sandbox, this will be a lot to take in. You might need to wait a bit for a fellow community member to break down some of these changes to be less daunting. From a high level, we're covering the following today: a handful of goals from the team, glaives, commentary on their design, and some plans for the future tuning, flinch and airborne gameplay, and how we're pushing these into build crafting, tuning one-hit kills in the Crucible, and general tuning for special ammo, exotic weaponry, legendary archetypes, and a slew of weapon perks. So let's get to it. So from Proctor, good day, Guardians. In Season 17, the Sandbox team is making changes across all aspects of Sandbox to improve the player experience of PvP. Here are the weapons team's goals to support that. So starting with introduce levers to tune how players build for airborne gunplay. Oh man, this is a hell of a tightrope to walk, Bungie. Be careful! Destiny is extremely fluid and expressive airborne movement, but that movement must be balanced against grounded players lest it become oppressive. We want players who enjoy that playstyle to be able to build into it, but they'll have to make tough decisions about what they leave behind to do so. Successfully engaging in the air will no longer be as simple as put an Icarus Grip mod on it, but the upside for heavily investing in it will be higher. Oh, dude, this conversation is just lube right before Bungie plunges. Next, allow players to mitigate for flinch. Excessive flinch is a frequent complaint from players, most importantly when using primary weapons and taking large chunks of damage from enemies. Players should be able to invest in flinch resistance, and baseline flinch should be lower on primary weapons, but hand tuned per archetype so that the weapons that need flinch resistance have the easiest access to it. Yeah, I think flinch. Sure, certain archetypes should be affected more than others. I'm curious to see how they're gonna break that out. Next, reduce the number of one-hit kills in PvP. Sandbox overall wants to reduce the number of one-hit kills in PvP, shifting combat more towards primary gunplay. With weapons, this means tuning special weapons, both the effectiveness of special weapons and special weapon uptime overall, and one key primary outlier. Next, address common feedback on weapons across all game modes. Each season, the weapons team looks at legendary and exotic weapons that are over or underperforming and makes adjustments. Season 17 will be a larger pass than usual, with more of a focus on underused weapons and PvP balance. With our goals stated, let's get to the meat of it all. First up, glaives. All right. Honestly, someone was killing me last night with a glaive in PvP, aggravating the piss out of me. They were actually doing really good. Glaive of Rave. We've noticed that several aspects of how glaives interact with weapon and armor perks don't match player expectations, and we want to take some time to clarify the intent, the changes included in Season 17, and the logic we're using for future changes. A glaive melee is a basic melee attack, not a weapon attack, and doesn't consume ammo and deals kinetic damage. So it's more like an unpowered punch than a sword swing. Allowing buffs to weapon damage to apply to glaive melees would be too powerful for something without ammo limitation, particularly in PvP, where even a small damage buff would allow for incredibly fast 2-hit kills. Also, in general, we prefer to increase glaive melee damage directly, as we're doing in fact, instead of effectively making weapon damage perks mandatory on glaives. Glaives already have a long lunge distance, and increasing this at all results in unreliable behavior over the network, so no melee lunge distance buffs apply to glaive melees. Our intent is that glaive melees should activate perks that trigger off base melee damage or kills. For example, ammo refill from Grave Robber, weapon damage buff 5x stack on Swashbuckler, ammo refill from Sealed Hamkar's Grasp. Glaive melees should not activate perks that trigger off power melee damage or kills or require expending subclass melee energy such as Combination Blow or Assassin's Cowl. So again, not activate those things. Glaive melees should benefit from melee damage buffs such as Winter's Guile or Worm God Caress. Glaive melees should not benefit from weapon damage buffs such as Rampage, Kill Clip, or even Swashbuckler. And again, that's tying into the melee damage itself, right? Glaive projectiles should benefit from weapon damage buffs, pretty much all weapon damage buffs. With that expectation set, there are some inconsistencies with how these are implemented in the game, some of which we've already fixed, some which we'll look at in the future. Once we have these guidelines consistently implemented in the game, we may look at specific cases where this doesn't match player expectations and do something custom, updating descriptions where needed for clarification. But our primary goal is that players be able to predict how a glaive interaction will work. Here's what we changed during Season 16, largely bug fixes with some quality of life changes. First up, glaive projectile hits to reach maximum energy was decreased from 6 to 4. Glaive melee can now be interrupted by Hunter Dodge. The Grave Robber perk now pulls from reserves on glaives instead of generating ammo. Glaives no longer get stuck in a claim recovery when using melee attacks on each other. Sealed Hamkar's Grasp no longer reloads glaives on projectile hits, but does on melee hits as expected. Glaive melees can no longer stun lock high health combatants. Glaive melee kills are now tracked in match history for bounties and so forth. Now here's what's changing in Season 17. We're pushing glaives deeper into the role of hard-hitting melee damage and near complete protection when shielded, as well as increasing projectile speed to make them more reliable at range. Note, the glaive shield grants 97.5% damage resistance in PvE and 75% damage resist in PvP. We're also increasing melee damage versus PvE combatants, except for bosses and vehicles, by 25%. We even reduced the energy drain while shielding by 30% and increased projectile speed dependent on the range stats. So at the 0 stat, this increases from 30 to 60 meters per second. At the 100 stat, this is increased from 80 to 100 meters per second. Okay, so essentially just a flat buff all across the board. That's good and all. What about our exotic glaives? Now, exotic glaives have all been buffed, in addition to the global glaive changes, which make it easier to build energy, projectile speed, making landing shots easier, and energy granted per projectile hit. The Titan Glaive Edge of Action, players will now gain a Void Overshield while inside the bubble. Helm of Saint 14 now applies to this bubble, as it does for Ward of Dawn. Yes! As it should be. Warlock Glaive Edge of Intent, increased speed and acceleration of the healing turret projectiles. Hunter Glaive Edge of Concurrence, triple the damage of the wave detonation, increasing the number of enemies it can chain from 4 to 8. Holy hell, they tripled the damage. All right, boys, I'm not saying we're gonna be in a glaive meta, but they gonna be nasty, and rightfully so, man, especially the exotic glaives, right? Come on. Now, global changes. Oh boy. Let's start with flinch. Aim deflection on receiving damage, typically called flinch, is a common pain point, particularly on primary ammo weapons. We rebuilt the stability weapon stat to grant flinch resistance in addition to its other effects, with maximum flinch resistance of 10% to 25% depending on the weapon archetype. With this change, players can build for flinch resistance more easily on weapons that feel flinch more than others, and less so on special weapons, which we don't want to be easier to use when under fire. From internal playtests, you may not feel the difference when using just one source of flinch resistance, but when stacking 2 or more sources, the benefit is strong. Note that higher zoom weapons are more affected by flinch, which we took into account when tuning these numbers, which makes sense, guys. Again, you're more zoomed in. Therefore, any flinch you receive or gunfire that you receive, there's going to be more deviation, especially visually. Now, here's the breakdown for flinch resistance with 100 stability. 25% on auto rifles, submachine guns, and bows. Dear God, submachine guns, man. 25% flinch resist. 20% pulse rifles, scout rifles, sidearm, and machine guns. 15% for hand cannons and trace rifles. 10% for fusion rifles, shotguns, sniper rifles, grenade launchers, both breach and drum, linear fusion rifles, both special and heavy, and rocket launchers. Note Note that a stability stat of below 20 will technically have a small flinch resistance penalty, but only around 5 weapons have a stability stat in that range. Now, I'm mentioning here because it's a related change. The resilience character stat now grants flinch resist of 0% at the 0 stat, but 10% at the 100 stat. Oh my God. We've been asking this for so long. So that 10% can stack on to say 25% there for your auto rifle. Max resilience Titans with Actium War Rig. Time to break out that sweet business. Now, examples. Note that sources of flinch resistance stack multiplicatively. Oh, that's even better. 100 stability stat Suros Pulse Rifle with Suros Synergy active. Oh my God. 10 resilience, no distractions, and 2 unflinching Pulse Rifle armor mods while buffed by a Rally Barricade. This is 0.8 times 0.8 times 0.9 times 0.65, 0.7, 0.5, which equals essentially 90% flinch resistance. Again, multiplicatively, guys, which Bungie has like steered away from, right? You see the word multiplicatively in sandbox changes, Bungie's like, nah, we don't talk about that word. A 70 stability stat hand cannon at 5 resilience and 1 unflinching hand cannon armor mod is 0.91 times 0.95 times 0.7, which equals 39% flinch resistance. So again, above, you had a lot of other things going into that, most notably the Suros Synergy being active, 10 resilience being that max resilience, and of course, don't forget they threw in no distractions on that as well. Regardless, primary weapons are looking to be performing much better from a consistency standpoint. And I think whether you're on PC or on console, you're gonna appreciate these changes, but especially on console, right? Overall, I like this. I like that it's being tiered and different archetypes of weapons, thus giving each different weapon type more value than the next. And again, it's kind of like the tier system they did with our supers. Same concept here, right? I still think there's a lot of primary weapons that need buffs overall in terms of their damage to just bring them up to par, but this is just an overall consistency buff that we love to see. Now, airborne gunplay. Oh, I'm nervous about this one, fellas. Before getting into build crafting, we've made fundamental changes to the modifiers applied while airborne. Your primary weapons will have less randomness in projectile accuracy in most cases. You'll have less aim assist instead, and will need precise aiming to land your shots without building heavily into airborne. Now, we've added a new weapon stat, airborne effectiveness, which is present on all weapons except those where being airborne doesn't have an effect. Swords, for example, which maps onto aspects of airborne gunplay using these guidelines. So with little to no investments, the 0 to 30 airborne stats, a character will have a smaller accuracy penalty than retail, but will have significantly lower aim assists. With minimum investments, 31 to 50 airborne stats, a character will have around the same in-air accuracy as Icarus equipped weapons do currently, but with noticeably lower aim assists. So again, the first one being significantly lower aim assists, this one being noticeably lower. With substantial investment, 51 to 70 airborne stat, a character will have better accuracy than retail weapons with Icarus, with fewer misses due to randomness, but with reduced aim assists. And with specialized investments being 71 to 99 airborne stats, a character will have no airborne accuracy penalties with very slightly less aim assists. And with a full investment, so overcommitting here at 100 airborne stats, a character will have no airborne accuracy penalties and the same aim assists. And this stat has been hand-tuned on all exotic weapons, everything that's shipped in Season 16 or 17, and everything that's ever shipped as Trials of Osiris or Nightfall loot. Older legendary weapons have a default value set per weapon archetype to a value just below the middle of the allowed stat range. Oh my God, I completely missed it. Yes, this is a nerf, but exotic weapons that we cannot slot Icarus on because there is not a mod slot. All of those primary weapons just went up substantially in value. Dude, you think Last Word is nasty now. Imagine Last Word after you commit 100 airborne stat to it. Mother of God, this has been something we've been asking for so long. Fellas, I don't think you know, this is huge. Note, this will be a hidden stat at Season 17's launch. Similar to aim assist and recoil direction, you'll be able to check out the stat on specific weapons through the API, and Season 18, several previously hidden stats will be visible on the weapon inspection screen. So again, kind of like recoil direction and other things, aim assist, these are hidden stats, but of course you can view this through DIM, Gunsmith, Light GG. Most of our own reviews, we talk about the hidden stats because they're important, but let's talk about the stat and what influences several aspects of airborne gunplay. So starting with the aim assist cone penalty angles, that is auto aim angle, reticle friction, adhesion angle. A high penalty to this angle at 0 stats, and a lower 0 penalty at the 100 stats. Accuracy cone penalty angle for primary weapons, a lower penalty than currently at 0 stats, and 0 penalty at 60 to 100 stats. So again, what it's notifying right here, guys, is on some levels, you're going to want to have to commit to this airborne stat. Accuracy cone penalty for special weapons, a slightly lower penalty than currently at 0 stats, 0 penalty at 100 stats. Now, headshot aim assistance, 0 at 0 stats, 1 degree at 100 stat on primary weapons, slug shotguns, linear fusion rifles, and machine guns, 0.5 degrees on sniper rifles. Now, this controls how forgiving headshots are while airborne. If this is 0, you must be pinpoint aiming precisely at the head to get the headshot. Otherwise, you'll get a body shot even if your aim assist cone overlaps the head. Previously, while airborne, players would get full aim assists for headshots provided their aim assist cone overlapped the head at all. Now, pellet shotgun spread angle, plus 25% at 0 stats and 0 at 100 stats. That is more shotgun spread at low airborne effectiveness stats. Okay, so again, Bungie's really trying to target shotgun usage, probably notably like stompy users with shotguns. Now, what this means overall is that you'll get fewer misses due to randomness from the accuracy cone while airborne, but reliance on aiming is much higher at low stats. To make this easier, you'll need a build into airborne. With decent aim, you will land more body shots instead of crits. Now, before and after examples of accuracy cone penalties. Hand cannon, before 0.667 degrees airborne accuracy penalty. After at 0 stat, it'll be 0.45. And again, this being a penalty. After at 60 stat, it'll be 0 degrees. All right, so you'll just have to commit to 60 there. Now, I hope I'm not losing you guys. That's just for accuracy. If you want the full benefits of aim assist, you'll still have to overcommit all the way up to 100. Now, sniper rifles. Before it was 3 degrees. After, at 0 stat, it's 2 degrees. At 60 stat, it's 0.8 degrees. And overcommitting there at 100 stat is 0 degrees. Sniper rifles. Before 3 degrees. After, 0 stat, 2 degrees. After, at 60 stat, 0.8 degrees. And at 100 stat, 0 degrees. Now, the airborne effectiveness stat comes from 3 sources: weapon, subclass, and armor. Weapon. The weapon's base airborne effectiveness stat with ranges varying from 0 to 10 and 0 to 30 depending on the weapon archetype. Exotic weapons typically get bumped up, that is higher stats than legendary weapons in that archetype, unless they're already extremely strong. So exotic weapons by default is going to have a higher airborne effectiveness stat. Now, the Icarus Gripped Adept Icarus weapon mod will be plus 15. So you're actually going to see a tangible value being added here with those mods. And that's probably why exotics start off with a higher default value, since you cannot slot on an Icarus mod. Now, certain weapon perks, such as the redesigned Air Assault. Oh my god, Air Assault is making a comeback? What? Valid stat ranges for legendary weapons. Exotics sometimes exceed these. Hand cannons, 0 to 25. Sidearms, 0 to 30. Auto rifles, 0 to 25. Pulse rifles, 0 to 25. Scout rifles, 0 to 20. Ooh, I feel like that value should be higher for scout rifles, right? Submachine guns, 0 to 30. Bows, 0 to 20. Snipers, 0 to 5. Shotgun, 0 to 5. Fusion, 0 to 10. Breach. Grenade launcher, 0 to 5. Trace rifle, 0 to 15. Rocket launcher, 0 to 10. Machine gun, 0 to 20. Linears, 0 to 15. Drum grenade launcher, 0 to 20. And glaive, 0 to 15. I'm actually really surprised when you look at things like sidearms and some machine guns. To me, by default, they have better inner accuracy. The fact that they have higher airborne effectiveness stats than that of, say, like a scout rifle or maybe even a pulse rifle. I'm kind of nitpicking right now. I just think that those values should have been the opposite. Now, higher tiers of legendary weapons, trials, raids, and nightfalls use the upper end of these ranges, as with other stats. Some examples of exotic weapon outliers: Sweet Business, 27. Merciless, 15. Fighting Line, 12. Sunshot, 27. Wow, that's pretty high there. Dude, Sunshot's about to make a comeback. Skyburner's Oath, 35? Dude, unless they buff Skyburner's Oath, though, it's still gonna be garbage. I'm just saying. Nobody wants Skyburner's Oath to be meta more than I do, I promise. Rat King, 30. Huckleberry, 33. Ace of Spades, 14. Now, as an example of an exotic that is already plenty strong enough and doesn't need to excel here, which is why they're keeping it at such a low value. Chaperone, 1. Ditto. Yeah, gonna have to keep that one low. Thunderlord, 26. Traveler's Chosen, 35. Redacted, 29. Okay, so whatever the new exotic weapon is gonna be. But based on that value being 29 and what you see in these other weapons, it's most likely a primary. Now, some examples of hand-tuned legendary weapon stats. Frontier's Cry, 19. Deliverance, 9. Submission, 27. Silicon Aroma, 4. Cantata, 12. The Messenger, 20. Hung Jury, 22. Ragnahild, I know I'm saying that name wrong. It's a shotgun though. 3. Igneous Focus Hammer 23. I gave a whopping 4 to Silicon Aroma, right? Now, subclass, the Heat Rises ability. This is a plus 70 to your airborne effectiveness stat when Heat Rises is active. That is huge. We already know it's very good, but of course, this requires you to consume your grenade. However, if we do end up getting Solar 3.0, there's probably going to be a gameplay loop that will allow you to have a grenade up at all times. The Temper Metal ability. Oh, plus 20 after getting a solar weapon kill. Wait, what? Temper Metal, by the way, guys, is an ability on the Titan class on Code of the Fireforge, where solar ability kills grant bonus movement and reload speed to you and your allies. Now it's going to give you the ability to get plus 20 and that airborne effectiveness stats from just getting a solar weapon kill. Oh my god. Stack that with Loreley or even Path of Burning Steps, and we got a meta. Whisper of Hedrons, Stasis Fragment, plus 20 after freezing a target. Okay, now exotic armor. Armor that revolves around being airborne or works on specific weapons, grants a bonus or penalty in the minus 50 to plus 40 range. Good lord, minus 50. Foe Tracer, plus 20 to all. Oh, looky there. Bungie's trying to make Foe Tracer kind of meta. Mechaneer's Trick Sleeves, plus 50 to sidearms. Oh wow, so specifically for sidearms. Oathkeeper, plus 40 to bows. All right, so you just saw above, bows actually have a very low value. So Oathkeeper, yeah. If you want to use bows, at least from the air, Oathkeeper's the play. Sealed Hamkar's Grass, plus 50 to all for 5 seconds after a melee hit. All right, little dependent there, right? Lucky Pants, plus 20 to hand cannons after readying a hand cannon. My lord, Lucky Pants, last word with 100 stat or nearly 100 stat and airborne effectiveness. This is going to be disgusting. Stompies, oh my god, minus 50 to all. Bungie just nerfed Stompies without even having to nerf Stompies. This is the biggest brain sandbox change I have ever seen. This was elaborate. Stompy Hunters, I don't know what the hell you're gonna do now. Minus 50. You're gonna be sitting in the negative with all of your weapons. You might as well not even jump. No backup plans, plus 30 to shotguns. Actium War Rig, plus 30 to auto rifles and machine guns. Hellfire Hearts, plus 20 to all. Lion Rampants, plus 50 hip fire only. I don't care. I'm gonna put on DMT. My Lion Rampants. Sky Cowboy will rise again. Peacekeepers, plus 40 to submachine guns. Oh, that's gonna be so good. My god. Peregrine Grease, plus 20 to all. Eye of Another World, plus 15 to all. Astrocyte Verse, plus 30 to all. Wow. Ophidian Aspect, plus 10 to all. Necrotic Grips, plus 30 to Weapons of Sorrow. Oh, looky there. Bungie's leaning into the theme, right? Wings of Sacred Dawn, plus 50 to all. And you're already going to be airborne due to his exotic ability. Boots of the Assembler, plus 30, but just Illumina. All right, I'll take it. I don't care. Dude, Lumina's actually feeling really good. Give me plus 30 with Boots of the Assembler. Hell yeah. Redacted, plus 30 to fusion rifles and linear fusion rifles. So obviously, the new exotic coming up, guys, is going to be tied to fusion rifles and linears. Now, this means in general, if you want good airborne effectiveness, say 70 stats, you should pick a weapon with a high stat, put Icarus on it, and either equip an exotic armor piece that helps or run a subclass aspect, fragment, or ability. And if you want the best possible airborne effectiveness, you'll generally have to go all in on a weapon, exotic armor, and subclass. Guys, I want you to take note here. This is build crafting to a whole nother level, because what this effectively is doing is it's lumping certain weapons together with certain exotics. Now, we've seen this fleshed out more directly, most notably things like Necrotic Grips and Thorn or Osteostriga, right? But even things like Boots of the Assembler and Lumina, Oathkeeper and Bows, Hipfire related weapons, and Lion Rampants. Bungie has taken the approach where in the past, movement exotics were essentially the best exotics inside of PvP. Doom Marchers, Transversive Steps, Stompies. They are moving away from that by giving value to these other exotics, by allowing them to lean in more directly into their themes. This is going to require all of us to think heavily on the weapons that we're using and the armor pieces that we're pairing with it. Now, moving on though, examples. Frontier's Cry with the precision hand cannon bonus, plus Icarus Grip, plus Lucky Pants is 19 plus 25 plus 15 plus 20 equals 79 airborne effectiveness. And again, Bungie's mentioned multiple times, pretty much anything north of 70 is A-okay. Submachine gun, Icarus Grip Stompies plus the Tempered Metal Active, 27 plus 15, but a whopping minus 50 plus 20 equals 12 airborne effectiveness. By God, you might as well not even use Stompies. Teraba with Peacekeepers plus Whisper of Hedrons, 23 plus 40 plus 20, which is a whopping 83 airborne effectiveness. Hedrones. I like that, but again, Whisper of Hedrons, you're not going to be able to get that every single gunfight. But regardless, you see how much Peacekeepers heavily weighs in on that airborne effectiveness stat, thus making Teraba an easier weapon to land shots with from the air. Skyburner's Oath plus Heat Rises, 35 at plus 70. Voila, you hit the cap at 100. Joke's on you, Bungie. Skyburner's Oath shoots projectiles, so it doesn't even matter. But sure, I'll get behind it. Just buff it. I'm thinking a nice 45% buff. That'll make it meta. Now, this is a big weapon system change. We'll be monitoring how it rolls out and expect to make adjustments post-ship. For fun, here's some graphs showing the most used armor exotics across each class. We'll be watching data and feedback once these changes are live to see how things shift. Again, that's the overarching goal here, guys. Bungie is trying to move people to use other exotics. Look at that. Look at Stompy's right there. Mother of God, you hoppity hunters. I think the other one is Omnioculus, if I'm seeing that colors right. Guys, I'm kind of colorblind. Jesus, Bungie, you got like so many shades of just blue. Variety, man. For Titan, though, look at that. Look how thick Dune Marchers is. You also got Lorley in the blue. I guess it's another shade of blue. Warlocks, Ophidian Aspects. Good lord. It's not even the movement exotic for you guys. That's crazy. Yeah, I like fast handling weapons too. That's why I said the other day, Bungie just needs to just buff handling across the board for all of our primary weapons, most notably the slow handling ones, right? Moving on to playlist weapons. By the way, guys, we're only halfway through this swap. Just to let you know, the latest playlist weapons drop from Gambit, Crucible, and Strike activity completions. Older weapons are available from vendor breakup packages or can be focused. Now, these weapons are intended to provide interesting drops even for players who spend a lot of their time in an activity. And while we want to keep the large perk pools to address that goal, we want to provide a way to reduce the duration of the chase for players who want a specific weapon. Also, since the older playlist weapons are still available as vendor rank up rewards, we want them to feel more relevant in a post-origin trait world. Playlist weapons now have a chance to roll with extra traits in one or both columns, increasing with the number of rank resets with the vendor during a given season. Note, reputation resets each season, so you'll need to play these activities each season to unlock the potential for extra perks. Wow, so actually getting more rank resets will contribute to those extra traits. Now, all playlist weapons from Beyond Light and later will drop with the appropriate origin traits. So honestly, depending on whether or not you reset, if you have a very small perk pool, and within that limited perk pool, if your god roll exists, you may not even want to reset until you get the god roll that you want. The other big change though there, guys, about all playlist weapons from Beyond Light and later will drop with the appropriate origin traits. Big move. Now moving on to stat display updates. Following the recent change to show numbers for all stats instead of just bars, we've opted to change the stat display on weapons to more clearly reflect their capabilities. All weapon stat bars now range from 0 to 100 instead of being limited to some range in the middle of the bar. This change eliminates rounding and other errors, particularly on adept weapons, masterworks, and enhanced traits, and better conveys the bounds a weapon stat can exist within. Now, this is purely a display change. No weapon behavior has changed, but you should expect all existing weapon stat bars to look slightly different. And again, I think a lot of this has to do with in the future, Bungie's just doing this to make room for, of course, those hidden stats. Now, one-hit kills and special ammo. Oh, the time has come. There are several damage buffs external to weapons that allow weapons to one-hit kill without much investment, such as aggressive sniper rifles with high-impact reserves, Ariana's Vow or Le Monarch, specifically when combined with an external 20% damage buff. As an example, Empowering Rift can give many sniper rifles one-hit body shot capabilities in the Crucible. I feel so called out right now. We've made so many of these cheesy builds ourselves, right? Now, most of these use the same buff under the hood, so we have adjusted them all at once. With these changes, it's going to be much rarer to get an easy one-hit kill with a weapon that wouldn't typically allow it. So we reduced the damage bonus for Empowering Rift, High Energy Fire, and Inertia Override from 20% to 15% against players. No effect in PvE. Oh boy, where's the lordly nerf? I don't see it yet. Fellas, where is it? In addition, we want special ammo to be less plentiful, making it more difficult to change special weapon kills. So we disabled ammo scavenger armor mods in the PvP. No matter how much ammo a player was carrying on death, if you pick up special brick, you will only get 1 ammo for shotgun and sniper rifles, or 1 kill's worth of ammo for weapons that require more than 1 shot to kill. For example, Forerunner and Trace rifles. We also retuned several special weapon archetypes and exotic weapons, see below, with the general goal of reducing the effectiveness and uptime of special weapons. All right, so before we move on there, did they just say they limited special ammo to 1 per brick for just shotgun and sniper rifles? And then proceeded to give the example of Forerunner and Trace rifles, but did not include things like fusion rifles? Surely not, right? Like that's 1 ammo for every weapon, right? I don't know, maybe we'll get some more clarification. Archetypes, special weapons. In particular, shotguns and fusion rifles are responsible for more one-hit kills than we like in PvP. We still want them to be an option, option, but less ubiquitous. Oh, big words! Less effective at multiple ranges and with lower uptime. Look at this graph right here. Look at that. You got fusion rifles. Look at the wide margin shotguns have. Good lord. You bunch of apes. Look at that little old grenade launcher sitting right there. And everybody complains on stream whenever I use a grenade launcher. Look, we make up such a small margin. Now, special weapons. All special weapons have had their inner accuracy significantly reduced. While we are okay with encouraging players to build into using their primary weapons more effectively in the air, we do not believe a prevalence of airborne one-hit kill options is good for PvP. Special weapons have a slightly larger airborne accuracy penalty than primary weapons at 0 airborne effectiveness stat, reduced to 0 at 100 stat. Now, special weapons have a similar airborne aim assist cone penalty to other weapons, around 50% at the 0 stat, and this penalty can be reduced but not entirely removed by investing in airborne effectiveness. So even overcommitting here, you're still going to be under the mark. Now, sniper rifles are fairly slow to ready, stow, and aim down sights, which has made snapshot field mandatory for many players. So we reduce stow, ready, and aim down sight times by 10%. That is, all snipers are now snappier. There's a matching change to snapshot below. Sniper rifles also have less access to ammo than shotguns and fusion rifles, where kills drop ammo right in front of you. So we think ammo scarcity will prevent sniper rifles from spiking. That is true though, right? Just saying. Yes, you're going to see probably a small uptick in sniper rifles. I think the biggest key change here is the fact that you don't have to have a snapshot, or so they say. It's only a 10% buff. I mean, we're not getting that crazy here. Now, moving into the shotgun discussion. Look at there. You got aggressive frames, lightweight frames, precision frames, shot package, of course. I would like to see the shot package data when Fellwinter first came out, right? Now, slug and pellet shotguns are still overwhelmingly popular in PvP despite some recent changes. So we touch them again with the goal of encouraging some diversity in special weapon choice. Now, we're keeping an eye on this change since we've touched shotguns multiple times recently and will adjust it if needed. With this change, we expect shotguns to have a shorter one-hit kill distance, but still be effective enough in that short-range kill role. This change reduces shotgun one-hit kill distance by around a half a meter because the importance of spread angle is just as high as damage fall-off, and this has not been touched. So they reduce damage fall-off start and end by 1 meter, reduce aim assist and magnetism fall-off starting and ending by 2 meters. All right, so the big kicker there is the half a meter reduction. Even like on the highest end of shotguns, you're capping out at about 7.5 meters. Put that in perspective. Way back when, you had things like Fellwinters killing up to 9 meters. So from top to bottom, you're still looking at like a 2 meter reduction, which is kind of bringing us to where we were back inside of D1. Look, at one time, yeah, you would get a kill with a shotgun, of course, but Bungie really tried to push us in the direction where you had to get a melee follow-up after a shotgun, which is why Warlocks became meta. They were easier to get melee kills with their damn ginormous palms. We'll see if this puts a dent in them. I think the overall movement exotics like Stompy's being effective alongside this 0.5 meter reduction, yeah, that's gonna put some hurt on it. Now, fusion rifle usage is trending pretty high, particularly in trials, and bringing shotguns down a little more would make them too good of an option. So we've made a global change. With these changes, 20 meter plus fusion rifle one-hit kills should be very uncommon through a combination of damage fall off and recoil changes. So first, reduce damage fall off near distance, 2 meters at 0 range, 2.7 meters when ADS with a 15 zoom stat, 1.3 meters at a 100 range, and 2.275 meters when ADS with a 15 zoom stat. Now, to be honest with you guys, most fusion rifles sit at 15 plus zoom, so I don't even know why Bungie's even throwing that in there. Actually, I don't know a single fusion rifle that's under 15 zoom, so yeah. Now, reduce damage fall off far distance, 1 meter at 0 range, 1.35 meters when ADS with a 15 zoom stat, 1.3 meters at 100 range, 1.75 when ADS with a 15 zoom stat. Also, reduce recoil scalar variance between 0 and 100 stability. 0 stability, unchanged at 0.75. 100 stability, increased from 0.5 to 0.55. That is, increase the recoil penalty slightly. Long story short, guys, stability will still offer benefits, but not down to 0.5, just 0.55. Now, when we rebuilt fusion rifles in Season 15, we wanted to differentiate the subfamilies dramatically from each other, which worked. Now that we've seen them in action for a couple seasons, we're pulling back from the extremes a little. With these changes, fusion rifle subfamilies are still very different from each other, but high impacts are stronger, and rapid fires and precisions should be a little less dominant. High impacts reduce unmodified high impact charge time from 1 second to 0.96 seconds. Still not back to what we were, right? What was it, 860 before? Yeah. They also increase the damage though per burst by 10. All right, I kind of freaked out there for just a moment. That's 10 per burst, not 10 per bolt. So yeah, things are still going to be relatively the same. 3 bolts for a kill. We'll see if this makes high impacts meta or not. Precisions increase unmodified charge time from 0.74 to 0.78. So a slight bump there in charge time. Honestly though, I think I'm still going to use precisions. I'm just saying, Snorri's meta. Rapid Rapid fires increase unmodified charge time from 0.46 to 0.5, decrease damage per burst by 20. Okay. That may actually tip it. Rapids already require 7 bolts to get a kill. Maybe it's going to require 8 with this change. Definitely going to affect it at range though, and this is obviously targeting likely suspect. Now, new charge time and damage per burst for all fusion rifle families. High impacts, 330 damage at 0.96. Precision's 280 damage at 0.78. Adaptive, 270 at 0.66. Rapid fire, 245 at 0.5. Okay, so rapid fires are going to be right on that threshold, as in they're going to still be able to get the 7 bolt kill, but only on Guardians, 5 resilience or less. Anything north of that is going to require 8. And again, small adjustments like that, guys, does make a difference. Now, besides Divinity, trace rifles aren't as popular in hard content as we want them to be. We particularly want damage type reworks of the oldest 3 trace rifles to have a chance to shine this season. And they're also more affected by disabling scavenger armor mods than other special weapons. With this change, there are better use of special ammo against non-red bar targets. So we increase trace rifle damage against non-red bar target combatants by 20%. We also increase ammo pickup per special ammo brick from 18 to 30. Oh, I'm liking the buff there. Now, primary weapons. Let's go. We're going to start talking some buffs here. Auto rifles and pulse rifles aren't as competitive as we like at mid-range, and lightweight pulse rifles are too hard to use to hit their optimal time to kill. With these changes, we expect auto rifles and pulse rifles to better compete with hand cannons in mid-long range and outrange standard zoom submachine guns. Auto rifles increase damage fall off near distance by 0.75 meters. Is that it? 0.75? Really? Pulse rifles increase damage fall off near distance based on the range stats. 0 range increase from 15 meters to 16 meters. 100 range increase from 22.5 to 24 meters. Note that this is the hip fire fall off distance and is multiplied by zoom value to get the aim down sight fall off distance. That's right. So the higher the zoom value, so if you got like a zoom value of 17, be like a 1.7. So at 20, this of course is going to have more effect. But again, that's always been the case. Again though, more zoom, more flinch. Now, damage fall off far distance remains 40 meters regardless of the range stat. Oh, so they're actually just going to throw a cap in. Okay. Now, increase lightweights, which are 450 round per minute pulse rifle damage per bullet from 15 to 16 with a 1.65 times precision scalar. This will increase precision damage from 24.75 to 26.4. All right, so I was a bit greedy here lately when we talked about lightweight frames. I was like, yo, just give it 30 damage per bullet. But 24.75 to 26.4, I mean, at this point, I'll take it. Still going to require 3 bursts, right? 8 bullets out of those have to be crits, but obviously more forgiveness with that increase in damage. And even stated right here, this won't change the optimal time to kill in PvP, but will reduce the number of crits required. So it's probably going to drop to like a 7 crit, 1 body. Will it make an overall difference? We'll see. Now, zoom is too important a factor on submachine guns, and submachine guns with low zoom don't feel competitive in PvP. So we reduced the variance in zoom, brought the base zoom up from 13 to 14, and extended the damage fall off distance. With this change, several standard zoom submachine guns will be more competitive, but this does make the inaccessible submachine gun with the highest perk trait RNG, Multi-Mac, compete less with auto rifles, and it will no longer straight up outclass every other submachine gun in PvP. Better break out them God roll funnel webs with rangefinder, just saying. So we increased the damage fall off by 1.5 meters, adjusted zoom values on most viable legendary submachine guns and 1 exotic. Shayur's went from 17 to 16, so that's actually a nerf. Multi-Mac with max zoom 17 to 15, with second highest zoom will bring this to 14 instead. Stochastic variable 13 to 14. Ikelos, just noting the change from the Witch Queen here, 13 to 14. 7 Seraph 13 to 14. Every Waking Moment 13 to 14. Huckleberry 13 to 15. Yo, look at Huckleberry making a comeback. Look at that. And pre-nerf Rampage with buff Peacekeepers and airborne accuracy. Let's go. Now, we like adaptive submachine guns and are starting to make them again, but in the current form, they kill a little too fast with body shots. So we reduce body damage to increase their body shot time to kill by 1 bullet without impacting their optimal time to kill. That's kind of odd. Dude, nobody's like, yo, I'm in a tight spot. Hand me my bug out back. I don't know. Maybe some of you did. So they decreased body damage from 12 to 11.25 and increased precision multiplier from 1.35 to 1.44. Oh, okay. Precision multiplier just went up. Somebody break out that exit strategy? Meta! Now, precision frame hand cannons have always been good while airborne, effectively having built-in Icarus grip. And with the changes to airborne functionality, we wanted to preserve that feel while translating their advantage to the new system. So intrinsic switch from a 75% airborne accuracy penalty reduction to plus 25 airborne effectiveness stats. This means that if you have Frontier's Cry with an Icarus grip mod, you would be at plus 19, plus 25, plus 15, which is 59 before factoring armor or subclass. No damage buff, nada. No range buff, no juice. Hot damn it, Bungie? You could have made them good. Now, heavy weapons. Machine guns still aren't where we want them to be in PvE, so we're giving them an additional buff, but less so against bosses, where their extremely long range and deep ammo reserves would make them strong in too many rolls. With this change, they'll shred most enemies without stepping on top-tier boss damage options, so we increase damage by 40% against PvE enemies, 20% versus bosses. Hot damn it. If only I had 21% delirium right now. But fellas, break out that recurrent impact. We're kind of there, right? That's a pretty ginormous buff. Now, Xenophage and Grand Overture received this buff, except for the bonus versus bosses. Well, that's probably good. Like, I actually do like Grand Overture. Xenophage? I mean, just think about it, guys. 40% damage buff with Xenophage against champions. Huh? Have a solar burn weak? No damage fall off, super easy to use? Stacks with Actium War Rig? Could be nasty. Now, sword stats have also been inconsistent for a while now, so we've tidied all of these up, mostly cosmetic. Fixed several inconsistencies in the stat display between different swords. This has no gameplay impact. Increase the charge rate stat of Sola Scar from 20 to 50 to match Temptation's hook. Now, rocket launchers and subfamilies weren't differentiated enough by the previous change, so we made the difference more extreme. With this change, we expect there to be more marked trade-off for the intrinsic tracking on precisions and a greater benefit for other subfamilies, specified relative to the baseline, that is high-impact rocket launchers. So precisions, minus 10% damage, both impact and detonation. Dude, Bungie wants us to quit relying on the tracking of precisions, right? High impacts, no change. This subfamily has the highest blast radius. Adaptive and aggressive, plus 10% damage. Oh, y'all got a red herring? Anybody here use a red herring? Could be meta. Now, exotics. All exotics that ship before the Forsaken release now have their kill trackers visible by default. Fighting Lion needed a bit more of a buff, so we improved its reload speed when Then the Herd is active, a couple releases back, and now we're increasing its blast radius and damage. With this change, it should be easier to get the damage you need to trigger its perk. So we reverted the Season 15 Breach Grenade Launcher blast radius reduction, but just for Fighting Lion, which increased blast radius by 0.4 meters. Also increased damage by 5%. Dude, the way Bungie leads up with these changes, right, sounds just like crazy. It's like, oh my god, this thing is gonna shake the earth when you shoot it, and they're like 0.4 meters and 5% more damage, which by the way is still very nice. I'm not against it. It's a buff. Eyes of Tomorrow, as a raid exotic, ought to be better against tough PvE enemies. With this change, it's a solid option in this role, particularly when the Adaptive Ordnance perk is active. So we increase damage versus bosses and champions by 30%. Oh, all right. Eyes of Tomorrow. That's exactly why they fixed it here lately. It won't self-detonate anymore, or shouldn't be, just in time for this ginormous buff. Leviathan's Breath always felt like it should absolutely wreck champions, and using its first shot to stun an unstoppable champion without it doing much damage felt bad. Archer's Tempo from its catalyst is significant on paper, but in practice, that draw speed buff isn't as noticeable as we like. Overall, we hope these changes make it feel better against all types of champions and other tough enemies in hard content. So the Archer's Tempo perk from the catalyst now has increased effect just on this weapon. Good. Dude, that draw time, terrible. Now, the standard draw time scaler for Archer's Tempo is 0.75 times. It is now 0.5625x on Leviathan's Breath. Jesus, Bungie, why not just make it like 0.55 or 0.56, whatever? Got a 0.5625. Who the hell is going to remember that? Nobody's going to draw their bow and go, yo, check out this 0.5625 limited draw time speed. They also added a small delay before detonation on champions, mini bosses, and bosses. This allows the impact to stun an unstoppable champion and the detonation to deal bonus damage against the stunned champion. Most notably, guys, it allows you to get another arrow knocked and ready to do full damage, right? Now, damage changed to be more of an even split between impact and detonation, and increased damage across the board by 50%. Overall damage versus champions is roughly doubled, even more compared to shooting an unstunned unstoppable champion. So if it happens to become unstunned. Gotcha. Now, I think I just incorrectly said it a second ago where I said when you stun a champion, you'll have time to do full damage with your next shot. But again, the stun occurs on the impact and not the detonation. But it is right what they're doing here. They're splitting the damage up, so the detonation damage doesn't happen immediately, therefore not dealing full damage post-stun. Now, the Huckleberry had an underwhelming engagement range, so we updated zoom based on the change to baseline submachine guns, increased zoom stat from 13 to 15. Honestly, I think that's going to make a huge difference, guys. Huckleberry is going to be feeling very nice. And again, Rampage at ×3 on Huckleberry, 50% more damage. That's pre-nerf Rampage damage numbers. It's nasty. Now, our experiment with pushing Xenophage into harder hitting but slower firing didn't pan out. So we're increasing the rate of fire and adjusting damage back to what it was. So increased rate of fire from 100 rounds per minute to 120, reduced damage per bullet to match the previous, doesn't benefit from the Season 17 machine gun damage buff versus bosses. So again, they don't want it to become the go-to option for dealing with bosses, but everything else, man, champions, Lucent Hive, Grandmaster Nightfalls especially, oh, it's gonna be fantastic. fantastic. Now, Luminar is too oppressive when combined with external damage buffs, but we felt that it could be stronger in PvE. With this change combined with the damage buff change above, we introduce a 60 resilience gate on killing a Guardian in PvP with a crits while in an Empowering Rift or similar. So reduce poison tick damage versus players by 25%. We also changed the poison damage type from burn to poison. This is largely housekeeping, not gameplay significant, but it is significant because does that mean it will pair with necrotic grips? Oh boy. Also increase poison tick damage versus AI by a whopping 50%. My god. If we get bows next season for champion mods, Luminarch is about to be a monster. Now, that 25% reduction there versus players, that was going to happen, guys. But most notably, that's in combination with the nerf to Empowering Rifts, right? Going from 20% to 15%. So it's a nerf on a nerf. So my Luminarch PvP users, get wrecked! Lawrence Driver can be difficult to fight against in PvP, in part because it does very high body shot damage. With this change, getting left super weak by a body shot should be less common, though we're keeping an eye on how this change lands and may revisit it later. So reduce body shot damage against players by 20%. This will also prevent it from being one-hit killed with a body shot while in an Empowering Rift combined with that change. Body damage reverts to old behavior when in the weapon's damage mode. Precision damage in any mode unchanged. All right, Skyburner's Oath. No way. No. Skyburner's Oath felt like it didn't have a niche, except for airborne memes. So we made a bunch of changes aiming to improve its ease of use and give it more utility and really push it into that airborne role. So we increased ADS projectile speed to 9,999. Good lord. It might as well be hit scan now. This projectile is now hit scan. Yep, I mean, might as well be. Both ADS and hipfire are now 150 rounds per minute. Oh, that's a nerf, man. What? Hipfire projectiles no longer tracks, but arcs similar to a grenade launcher and has a larger detonation size than ADS. The hipfire detonation also applies a burn to targets. Okay, that's kind of interesting, especially for Solo 3.0. The bonus range from the Masterwork has been rolled into the base stats of the weapon. The Masterwork now grants bonus reload speed instead. Okay, that's just a menu change. Also has the highest airborne effectiveness stat of any weapon in the game. Okay, that's nice and all, but dude, why did we just reduce rounds per minute from 200 to 150 when shooting from the hip? Bungie, please do explain. I mean, for once, Skyburner's Oath was looking to be meta. Let's just move on. The last word plays very differently on mouse and keyboard than it does on controller, but the disparity doesn't need to be that large. We're keeping an eye on this one too. So we reduced mouse and keyboard recoil penalty from 33% to 22%. Okay, I'm still gonna use controller though. Arbalest is more dominant than intended in hard PvE content, able to fill the anti-barrier role as well as shield breaking and boss damage. We've made a fairly small adjustment here, but may need to look at it again in a future season. We reduced damage versus champions by 25%. My god, why? Why would you do this, Bungie? I'm gonna close my eyes and pretend I didn't see that. Now, this will still break barriers in one hit, but 25% nerf against champions. Fellas, I'm not gonna lie, that hurts. Now, Graviton's Lance Catalyst didn't help this weapon enough, and we wanted to give it a bit of a boost. This change gives it some interesting utility in PvE and PvP, particularly with the buff to exotic primary weapons in the Witch Queen. So the Catalyst changed from granting Hidden Hand to granting Vorpal Weapon and Turnabout. No way. Oh, Graviton's about to be meta. Like meta. Grand Overtures. Most recent adjustment switched the missiles to fire in burst of 5, which allows for more granularity in unloading that damage. But sometimes you just want them all to fly out at once. So reduce the time between bursts when in missile mode. Holding the trigger will now fire all missiles in a continuous burst. Tapping will fire 5-round bursts. Bungie confirms that they too like to blow their load. Coldheart, arc damage type update. And Coldheart's exotic trait, more or less being, is a trace rifle. No longer fits in a role with legendary trace rifles. The ease of use on sustained damage was also pretty low. So sustained damage creates an ionic trace, and collecting an ionic trace grants energy to all of your abilities. We also increased grace time before the damage ramp clears from 0.113 seconds to 1 second. That's actually pretty huge there. So more forgiveness going from target to target, and the ionic traces, that's going to be interesting, right? If we happen to get Arc 3.0 next season, be looking at Coldheart, fellas. Now, Prometheus Lens, solar damage type updates, and generally this needed some tweaks to be viable. Sustained damage applies a more useful burn to targets. Again, man, thematically, I feel like these trace rifles are going to pair very nicely with our 3.0 subclasses. Potentially, or at least I'm hoping. Wave Splitter, void damage type update, and the power cycling mechanic was interesting, but ultimately hard to capitalize on. So power level no longer cycles randomly. The default damage output is the same as the old middle tier. Picking up an orb of power now grants 10 seconds of maximum power and caps at 20 seconds, up from 5 and 10. Now suppresses targets while granted this mode by picking up an orb. Man, that would be so good this season, right? Considering the artifact mods we currently have. Osteo Striga, Saga, and its projectiles somehow ship rotated by 90 degrees. Looks a bit weird. Correcting rotation on the projectile's model. Is it really? I just thought that's how it looked. I was like, okay. These bullets are thick. Now, Lord of Wolves is kind of a shotgun, but has its own custom tuning. It wasn't impacted by the previous shotgun change, and was much too strong with shotguns and fusion rifles getting reduced range. This brings it more in line. Reduced damage fallout start and end by 25%. Hot damn. Lord of Wolves is still probably gonna find a way to be meta. I'm just saying. It always happens. Now moving on to perks. Notes. Where an enhanced perk exists and an adjustment is needed, it's been adjusted in the same way. Snapshot sights has felt mandatory on sniper rifles forever. With this change, a sniper rifle with snapshot will feel about the same, but one without snapshot will feel a lot snappier. So we increased ADS animation speed scaler from 0.5 to 0.75 for special ammo weapons. Primary ammo weapons are unchanged. Now opening shot has felt mandatory on shotguns forever, in large part because it gives part of its buff as a damage fall off scaler. This isn't something we like on short range weapons. You can still feel the range bump with this change unless range is already capped, but it won't let weapons push completely outside their intended ranges. So remove damage fall off scaler. Increase range stat bonus from plus 20 to plus 25. Other stats from this perk are unchanged. Plus 20 aim assist stat, 5% reduced accuracy cone angle, and 10% reduced accuracy and cone growth. So it's going to be an overall bonus there to the range stat and overall ease of use, but they removed the damage fall off scaler. Now full choke has been the go-to magazine perk forever, justified or not. Now with this change, other magazine options should be competitive. So we increased spread angle scale from 0.95 to 0.9625. That is, narrows the spread a little less. Smoothbore has always felt like an awkward magazine perk, so we're buffing it a little. So reduce spread angle scale from 1.1 to 1.075. That is, it widens the spread a little less. Oh, smoothbore meta? I mean, it does give the biggest bump there to range. I'm just saying. Now, Desperado is a strong perk in its current form, but we like to be able to put it on more weapons without breaking PvP. With this adjustment, it's still strong, has more PvE utility, and can be applied to pulse rifle subfamilies aside from high impacts if desired. So we increase fire recovery scaler from 0.415 to 0.7. That is, it doesn't fire as fast with the perk active. We also reduced duration from 7 seconds to 6 seconds and add a timer to the buff text, but we remove the PvE damage penalty. Actually though, that's huge. That sucks, man. I really do like Desperado. Like, Messenger can literally be a weapon I use every single day with Desperado inside of 6v6. We'll just have to see how big of a reduction in that rate of fire it actually is. Now, Air Assault was shelved a long time ago, but adding the airborne effectiveness stat gave us the opportunity to turn it into a perk that actually does what it says on the description. With this change, airborne gunplay while wounded will be more effective. So rebuilt Air Assault now grants up to plus 60 airborne effectiveness stat when wounded. Same trigger conditions as Eye of the Storm. Ah, okay. Why only when wounded though, right? I mean, we'll see. Maybe. And then of course, like, what falls under the category of wounded? Is that like any damage? And then does it persist? If it's like Eye of the Storm, it will persist, right? Now, Mulligan was never quite strong enough to warrant a pick previously, but buffing it would have been risky on special weapons. With this change, it's useful on rapid fire primary weapons where you don't expect every shot to hit, occupying a similar role to triple tap but inverted. So we increased the chance to return ammo on a miss from 20% to 35% on primary ammo weapons. This of course is unchanged on special and heavy ammo weapons. Now, compulsive reloader shipped a little weak. With this change, you could really feel the reload speed bump. So we increased the reload stat from plus 40 to plus 50 and added a 0.95 times reload animation scaler. Now, Adagio was allowing for one-hit body shot kills with slug shotguns. While this is possible with other perks such as Swashbuckler, the investment required to trigger the perk is much too low for that power bump. With this change, a slug shotgun with Adagio will be less of a monster in PvP, but will still be able to get headshot kills at greater ranges with the perk active. So we reduced the damage bonus for shotguns from 30% to 20%. Is that for PvE and for PvP or just PvP? Normally they clarify, right? They didn't seem to clarify it here. Now, mods. Icarus Grip will now grant the airborne effectiveness stats instead of its previous airborne accuracy penalty scaler. So we remove airborne accuracy scaler, now grants plus 15 airborne effectiveness stat. Adept Icarus Grip will grant that plus 15 airborne effectiveness stats and plus 5 handling. Oh, so they're actually removing the range bump that Adept Icarus would grant. Interesting. Well, that was quite a bit, wasn't it? Let it soak in for a while. You may need to read a few sections more than once to understand the technical speak behind it all. Heck, you might not even understand the changes until they're in your hands. In any case, we'll be watching the conversation around these planned changes and answering things where we can. Now wait, more weapon talk? While the following isn't about weapon tuning, we felt it was important to bundle the following with the mega twab of upcoming sandbox information to keep players like you in the know. Just before last season ended, we announced a list of weapons that would be rotating out of the Destiny 2 activities with little time to spare. fair. Some of these weapons could be seen as powerhouses in previous sandbox metas, while others were just happy to be included. Next season and the season after will be no different. In an effort to keep loot pools from overcrowding as we continue to develop and release sweet new pieces of gear, we'll have a handful of weapons from Iron Banner, Nightfalls, and Trials of Osiris rotating out at the start of Season 17. We're also including a list of weapons that will be rotating out in Season 18 in hopes of giving you a full season to target anything that might be missing from your collections. So leaving loot pools at the beginning of Season 17, Iron Banner, occluded Finality Sniper Rifle, as well as the Finite Impactor Hand Cannon. Oh no, anything but Finite. Nightfalls, the Comedian Shotgun, and the Palindrome Hand Cannon. Hot damn it, if I don't get a God Roll Palindrome before it leaves. So help me God. Trials of Osiris, Shayura's Wrath Submachine Gun, and the Messenger Pulse Rifle. Oh, definitely want to get those guys. Leaving loot pools at the beginning of Season 18, so the season after this next season, Iron Banner, Peace Bond Sidearm, Archon's Thunder Machine Gun, Nightfalls, Plug 1, and the Hothead Rocket Launcher, and Trials of Osiris, Eye of Soul, and the Summoner. Note, Season 18 is a ways out. Weapons included in our planned rotation are subject to change. Now, while we don't have any firm plans to share, we can note that the team is aware of the feedback surrounding weapon rotations and availability and looking at opportunities in the future to address it. To keep expectations in check, this is likely a long-term investment, so don't expect too much news over the next season. Once we have more information, we'll be sure to let you know. Stay tuned for announcements on weapon rotation info and new weapons coming to each activity. Now, near-term abilities tuning. With weapons talk out of the way, let's shift back to some near-term conversation and happenings in Destiny 2. Well, in the near term, we do have some tuning for abilities in exotic armors in the Crucible as well. Next Tuesday, April the 26th, Destiny Hotfix 4.0.1.1 will become available with the following changes. Axiom Bolt's base cooldown increase from 91 seconds to 152 seconds. Wow, that's a hell of a nerf. Titan's Barricade and its base cooldown when Bastion Void Aspect is equipped is now 82 seconds, up from 53 seconds. This matches the recharge rate of Warlock Rifts. Offensive Borg now provides 60% less bonus grenade energy regeneration in PvP game modes. Whisperer Chains now provides 15% bonus damage resistance against players when near a stasis crystal, down from 25%, unchanged versus PvE targets. Renewal Grass. While equipped, Renewal Grass increases the base cooldown of Dustfield grenades from 62 seconds to 152 seconds. My lord, that is more than double. The outgoing damage penalty applied to player victims in the Renewal Grass Dustfield grenade reduced from 50% to 20%. Damage unchanged versus PvE targets. Stay tuned for the full patch notes article planned for release alongside the hotfix. Fellas, did Bungie just forget Loreley Splendor existed? Like, did I miss it? At least from what I'm seeing, guys, it doesn't look like Loreley's getting a nerf. Now, Gambit Labs, Moat Thief. Looking to next week, we also have our second run of Gambit Labs coming into play. Invasion swaps went off well, giving us great data and feedback on the moat dunking, invasion cadence, and primeval healing, and a role where you invited opponents onto your playing field when hitting certain thresholds. For this edition of Labs, we'll be experimenting with Moat Thieves starting on April the 26th. Now, not much has changed since our original Labs announcements. Fundamentally, the original concept of the Invader was Guardian as taken terror, overpowered, and dangerous. Something new to have to fight. While that is very compelling, we don't believe it is the only compelling Invader fantasy. We believe that Sneaky Moat Thief is worth exploring too. Normal moat drain from having 2 blockers is disabled. Instead, every second the Invader is invading, 1 moat drains directly from your bank to the Invader's bank. Honestly, it sounds like it's going to be super annoying. Now, keep in mind, Invaders need to be near the bank in order to drain the moats. This won't be too much of a hide and seek affair. Do you prioritize clearing the active fronts of enemies, or do you help your teammates address a beefed up Titan relaxing behind their barricade, looking to steal some of your hard-earned moats? Hunters may throw a smoke bomb or 2 in the effort to jam up your radar, while Warlocks could throw a strategically placed well of radiance directly above your bank, making it easier to fight alongside the taken blockers they just sent over. We're looking forward to your feedback, and we'll be watching the conversation throughout the week. Yeah, we'll give it a go. I mean, we tried out Invader Swap, and of course, I had a lot of thoughts about Gambit that we talked about a few weeks ago. We'll probably revisit that discussion in the future. Well, guys, that is your TWAB this week. Big shout out to DMG for writing this behemoth. It's been a hell of a TWAB, guys. Normally, we read the outro, but at this point, I'm going to be just throwing these edits together as quickly as I can to get this out to you guys. But thank you to all of you. If you watch this video from start to finish, thank you so much for checking out our TWAB video. I hope you like some of the changes mentioned in today's TWAB, and I hope you're excited about the upcoming sandbox for next season. Well, fellas and ladies, thank you all for coming and watching, and as always,
Slap that like button like your mama told you right.